The discovery. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the data streaming across her monitors at the Arecibo Observatory, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The signal had appeared 3 days ago, a perfectly structured sequence of prime numbers followed by what appeared to be a warning. Not a greeting, not an invitation, but a warning. "Dr. Williams, you need to see this," she called out, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Her colleague crossed the control room, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the screens. "Another false positive?" he asked, leaning over her shoulder. They'd had dozens in the past year alone. "No, this one's different. Look at the pattern recognition analysis. The signal wasn't just complex, it was urgent. Embedded within the mathematical sequence was a repeating message that, once decoded, painted a disturbing picture. The galaxy was not the peaceful expanse of cooperation that humanity had imagined in its optimistic science fiction. It was a carefully managed hierarchy, with rules that made Earth's international politics look like a kindergarten playground. Within hours, similar reports began flooding in from radio telescopes across the globe. The message was being broadcast on multiple frequencies, growing stronger by the hour. Someone wanted to make absolutely certain that Earth got the memo. Stay quiet, stay small, or face the consequences. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session, while the world's leading scientists and cryptographers worked around the clock to decode more of the signal. As the data accumulated, a clearer picture emerged. The message wasn't from a single alien civilization. It was from a group of species that had broken away from something called the Galactic Concordat, a massive administrative body that regulated all spacefaring civilizations in the Milky Way. The warning was simple. The Concordat was approaching Earth's solar system, and their standard procedure for uplifting primitive civilizations was anything but benevolent. They didn't destroy worlds. They simply reshaped them to fit their vision of cosmic order. Cultures were preserved only as museum pieces, their development frozen at the moment of first contact. Dr. Chen found herself unexpectedly at the center of it all, summoned to Washington, D.C., to brief a joint task force of military and civilian leaders. The Pentagon's conference room was packed with generals, scientists, and intelligence officials, all grappling with an unprecedented situation. "Let me be clear," she said, standing before the assembled leaders, her laser pointer circling a particular segment of the decoded message. "This isn't just a warning about the Concordat. It's also instructions, a blueprint for doing something no species has successfully managed before." Admiral Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, leaned forward. "And what's that, Doctor?" "Disappearing. Completely. These rebel species are suggesting we have a unique opportunity. The Concordat doesn't know exactly where we are yet. They've detected our radio signatures but haven't pinpointed our location. We have a window of opportunity to do something unprecedented." The room erupted in murmurs. Secretary of Defense Marshall raised a hand for silence. "Disappear, an entire planet. That's not possible." Dr. Chen smiled for the first time since detecting the signal. "Actually, it is. The rebel species have provided us with a fascinating analysis of the Concordat's blind spots. They're so convinced of their own superiority, so certain of their protocols and procedures, that they have massive technological vulnerabilities. They've never encountered a species that didn't want to be uplifted. They've never had to deal with a civilization that chose to ghost them." "Ghost them." General Zhang of the Chinese delegation looked confused at the colloquialism. "Yes," Dr. Chen continued, warming to her subject. "The rebels suggest that we could become the first species to simply opt out. But it would require something unprecedented, global cooperation, and the greatest act of deception in human history." The next few hours were filled with heated debate as the implications became clear. The plan was audacious. Humanity would need to create the illusion of its own mysterious disappearance while simultaneously preparing for potential discovery. Every radio telescope, every satellite, Every electronic signature would need to be masked or eliminated. Cities would need to develop ways to hide their light signatures from space. The entire human race would need to become invisible to advanced alien detection methods. But within the challenge lay an opportunity. The rebels had included specifications for technologies the Concordat used, and more importantly, their limitations. Humanity wouldn't have to actually regress. We just had to appear to have done so while secretly advancing along very different technological paths than the Concordat would expect. As the meeting stretched into its 10th hour, a consensus began to emerge. This wasn't just about survival. It was about maintaining humanity's independence and right to develop on its own terms. The challenge energized something deep in the human spirit, the desire to prove authority figures wrong, to find creative solutions to impossible problems, and to maintain independence at all costs. Dr. Chen found herself working with a rapidly expanding team of scientists, military strategists, and government officials from around the world. Traditional rivalries were set aside as humanity faced its first truly global challenge. The plan they began to develop was unlike anything in human history, a combination of technological innovation, social engineering, and the world's biggest game of hide and seek. The hardest part, she explained to the UN General Assembly 2 weeks later, won't be the technology. It will be convincing every human being on Earth to participate in the deception. We're not just hiding from alien observers, we're creating the mystery of the century. We need to make our disappearance so puzzling, so contrary to the Concordat's experience, that they'll be forced to completely reassess their assumptions about developing civilizations. The assembly hall was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was about to attempt something that would either be remembered as the greatest feat of species-wide cooperation in history, or the most foolhardy decision ever made. But as Dr. Chen looked out at the determined faces before her, she felt a surge of confidence. If any species could pull off ghosting an entire galactic civilization, it would be humanity. After all, we'd been subverting expectations and breaking rules since we first emerged from our caves to gaze at the stars. The great vanishing act of humanity was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silent response. Operation Blackout began on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Around the world, radio stations switched to automated emergency broadcasts before falling silent one by one. Satellite networks began their carefully choreographed dance of apparent malfunction. Social media platforms initiated their planned crashes. To any outside observer, it would appear as though humanity's technological infrastructure was experiencing a cascade of catastrophic failures. In reality, every step was meticulously planned. Phase 1 complete, Dr. Chen reported from the new underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. Civilian communications are dark. Military networks are operating on the new quantum channels. Admiral Hayes nodded, studying the massive display showing the world's communication networks going dark in real time. What's the civilian response? Better than expected, replied Dr. Jessica Martinez, the operations chief psychologist. The solar storm cover story is holding. Most people think we're experiencing an unprecedented solar event that's disrupting global communications. The few who suspect otherwise are being monitored. It had taken 6 months of preparation to reach this point. 6 months of secret installations, midnight equipment transfers, and the largest covert construction project in human history. While the world's attention was focused on apparent communication failures and technical glitches, a new technological infrastructure was being built in the shadows. The real genius of the plan lay in its simplicity. Instead of trying to hide everything, humanity would appear to lose things. A civilization that seemed to be regressing due to natural disasters and technical failures wouldn't draw the same kind of attention as one that was actively hiding. Status report on the cities, Admiral Hayes asked. Dr. Chen pulled up a new display. The metamaterial canopies are 80% installed over major metropolitan areas. From orbit, it'll look like our cities are going dark due to power failures. The holographic cloud cover is maintaining stable patterns over key installations, and the deep-sea facilities are fully operational. The Admiral allowed himself a small smile. Who would have thought that humanity's greatest technological achievement would be making itself appear less technologically advanced? But not everyone was happy with the deception. In the corner of the command center, Dr. William Nash, one of the world's leading physicists, was arguing with General Zhang. "We're going about this all wrong," Nash insisted. "We should be showing them our strength, not hiding like scared children." "That's exactly what they'd expect," General Zhang replied calmly. "The Concordat has dealt with thousands of emerging civilizations. They have protocols for handling resistance, rebellion, and even technological superiority. But they have no protocol for handling a civilization that simply vanishes." The argument was interrupted by a priority alert. All eyes turned to the main screen as Dr. Chen pulled up the data. "We've got movement," she announced. 3 Concordat survey vessels just entered the Oort cloud. They're following the pattern predicted by the rebels. The room fell silent. This was the moment they'd been preparing for. Humanity's greatest performance was about to begin. "Initiate Phase 2, Admiral Hayes ordered. Around the world, carefully prepared evidence of humanity's regression began to appear. Automated systems released decades-old radio signals into space, making it seem as though Earth's technology was failing and reverting to earlier states. Holographic projectors created the illusion of abandoned cities, gradually being reclaimed by nature. And in orbit, thousands of microsatellites began broadcasting contradictory signals that would confound any attempt to pinpoint Earth's true technological state. But beneath the surface of this apparent descent into chaos, humanity was advancing faster than ever before. The pressure of possible discovery had united the scientific community in unprecedented ways. Quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and energy production all made massive leaps forward as scientists worked to solve the problem of hiding an entire civilization. Dr. Chen found herself working closely with Dr. Martinez as they monitored the psychological impact of the deception. "The interesting thing," Martinez observed, "is how people are adapting to the new reality. They're turning it into a game, competing to see who can maintain the illusion best. Human nature at its finest. We're treating galactic hide-and-seek as a sport." "Speaking of games," Chen replied, "how's Project Legacy going?" Martinez grinned. "Brilliantly. We're encoding our real technological advances into video games and fictional media. If the Concordat does manage to intercept any of our remaining broadcasts, they'll dismiss our actual achievements as entertainment. They'll see exactly what we want them to see: a civilization apparently regressing while dreaming up fantastical technologies in their stories." The trick they had discovered was to hide their advances in plain sight. Humanity's real technological breakthroughs were being published in science fiction magazines, discussed on gaming forums, and shared as theoretical papers on what remained of the public internet. The Concordat's anthropologists would analyze this data for centuries, never realizing they were looking at humanity's actual technological roadmap, disguised as entertainment. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead. As the Concordat vessels moved closer, they would begin their detailed surveys of the solar system. That's when humanity's disappearing act would face its ultimate test. "Status update on the Mars colony?" Admiral Hayes asked. "The underground facilities are complete," Chen reported. "On the surface, it looks like we abandoned the base years ago. The solar radiation excuse will hold up to their scanning technology. And the moon. Same story. We've even added some strategic debris to suggest failed attempts at maintaining the bases. According to our visible timeline, humanity reached for the stars and fell back to Earth." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Now comes the hard part. We have to maintain this deception, not just for days or weeks, but potentially for years. We have to become the galaxy's greatest mystery." Dr. Chen looked at the display showing the approaching Concordat vessels. They were about to find out if humanity could pull off the greatest disappearing act in galactic history. And somewhere out there, she knew, the rebel species who had warned them were watching, waiting to see if humans would succeed where all others had failed. The game was on, and humanity was playing for keeps. The Ghost Protocol. The first Concordat survey ship arrived on a moonless night, its massive form briefly eclipsing Saturn as it decelerated into the solar system. In underground bunkers across Earth, humanity held its collective breath. 3 years of preparation were about to be put to the ultimate test. Receiving preliminary scans, Dr. Chen announced, her voice steady despite the tension in the command center. They're doing exactly what the rebels said they would, starting with the outer planets and working their way in. Admiral Hayes studied the holographic display showing the alien vessel's path and our countermeasures. All in place, Dr. Nash replied, his earlier skepticism replaced by professional focus. The quantum interference field is operating at full capacity. Any active scans they perform will receive carefully crafted false returns. The real genius of humanity's deception lay not in what they were hiding, but in what they were showing. The Concordat would detect exactly what they expected to find: the remnants of a promising civilization that had somehow lost its way. The truth was far more interesting. In the 3 years since Operation Blackout began, humanity had made technological leaps that would have seemed impossible before. The pressure of necessary innovation, combined with the freedom to develop without external interference, had led to breakthroughs in quantum mechanics, artificial intelligence, and energy generation that surpassed even the Concordat's understanding. "They're approaching the Mars perimeter," Dr. Martins reported, activating the holographic overlay. On the surface of Mars, carefully maintained ruins of humanity's first extraterrestrial colonies stood as silent witnesses. Below ground, however, a thriving civilization of over 50,000 people continued their work, protected by technology that made them invisible to even the most sophisticated alien scanning systems. "They're slowing down," Chen observed. Something's caught their attention. The command center fell silent as data streamed in from their own observation systems, technologies reverse-engineered from the specifications provided by the rebel species, then improved upon by human ingenuity. They'd found the Jupiter mining station, Nash reported with a hint of pride. The abandoned one we wanted them to find. The derelict station had been one of their masterpieces, a carefully constructed piece of evidence suggesting that humanity had attempted to establish resource extraction operations in the outer solar system before technological regression forced them to abandon it. In reality, humanity's actual resource collection operations were happening on a quantum level, harvesting energy and materials in ways the Concordat had never imagined possible. "How's the population handling the extended blackout?" Admiral Hayes asked, turning to Dr. Martinez. "Better than expected. The underground arcology networks are functioning perfectly. People have adapted to the new normal, living in surface structures by day that appear primitive from orbit, then accessing our real infrastructure through hidden entrances. The gamification of the deception has helped enormously. People treat it like a massive, species-wide secret club." It was true. What had started as a desperate measure had evolved into something else entirely. Humanity had discovered that they enjoyed the challenge of hiding in plain sight. Children played Spot the Scanner games, competing to identify Concordat observation devices. Artists had embraced the challenge of creating dual-purpose structures that appeared primitive from above, but contained cutting-edge technology within. But not everything was going smoothly. Dr. Chen pulled up a new alert on the main display. "We've got a situation in Brazil. A group of religious fundamentalists is planning to break protocol. They want to make contact with the heavenly visitors. Deploy the containment team," Hayes ordered. "Standard procedure, no traces." Within minutes, a specialized unit was en route, equipped with technology that would have seemed like magic 3 years ago. Their job wasn't to harm the would-be contactees, but to create such a convincing illusion of divine intervention that the group would choose to maintain silence on their own. "Status update on Project Prometheus," Hayes asked, turning back to the main situation. Dr. Nash's face lit up. "The quantum consciousness network is exceeding all expectations. We've achieved stable linkage across all major population centers. The Concordat's psychic monitoring systems will detect exactly what we want them to. A species experiencing a form of collective regression, their consciousness dimming rather than expanding. The truth was far more spectacular. Humanity had developed a form of shared consciousness that operated on principles the Concordat had never discovered, allowing instant communication and coordination across the entire species while remaining completely undetectable to outside observation. "They're moving into the inner solar system," Chen announced, preparing for close Earth observation protocols. This was the moment they'd been preparing for. As the massive alien vessel approached Earth's orbit, humanity's greatest performance would begin. Cities would appear abandoned or operating at minimal capacity. The few visible human activities would suggest a civilization that had mysteriously lost its drive for advancement. But beneath the surface, in quantum-shielded facilities deep underground, and in the vast cities beneath the oceans, humanity was achieving things their visitors couldn't imagine. They had turned their entire civilization into a quantum state entity, simultaneously appearing to regress, while actually advancing far beyond their observers' understanding. "New contact," Chen reported suddenly. "Encrypted quantum burst transmission from the rebel species." They're impressed. Apparently, we're the first civilization to not only successfully hide, but to actually advance significantly while doing so. Admiral Hayes allowed himself a small smile. "Well, if you're going to do something, might as well do it right. What's our timeline looking like?" "The Concordat survey mission is scheduled to last 6 months," Martins replied. "After that, assuming we maintain the deception successfully, Earth will be classified as a regression anomaly, a case study in failed emergence. We'll be placed under minimal observation and left largely alone." "Perfect," Hayes nodded. "Just enough time to complete the quantum fold drive tests. By the time they decide we're not worth watching closely, we'll be ready to step onto the galactic stage on our own terms." Dr. Chen studied the data streaming across her screens, marveling at how far they'd come. Humanity had taken a warning of doom and turned it into an opportunity for unprecedented advancement. They had learned to hide in plain sight, to advance by appearing to retreat, and to unite as never before. The greatest trick humanity ever pulled wasn't convincing the galaxy they didn't exist. It was using that deception to become something far greater than anyone, including themselves, had imagined possible. The Watchers perplexed. High Observer Axfel's primary sensory membrane pulsed with frustration as it reviewed the latest reports from Earth. In 3 centuries of cataloging emerging civilizations, it had never encountered anything like this. Impossible. It communicated to the assembled council of Watchers. A civilization cannot simply fade away. Not like this. Not without leaving traces. The great observation chamber of the Concordat survey vessel, Inevitable Progress, hummed with the collective confusion of its occupants. The holographic display showed Earth rotating slowly before them, a puzzle that defied their extensive experience. "The evidence is clear," Secondary Observer Vextro responded, its thought patterns tinged with uncertainty. Their technological signature began degrading precisely 3.7 local solar cycles ago. Their artificial satellite network has largely failed. Their global communication systems appear to have collapsed. Their space presence has been abandoned. By all measurable metrics, they are experiencing the most rapid regression ever documented. And yet, Axfel pulsed, they still exist. Their population appears stable. They show no signs of the mass death or social collapse that typically accompanies such regression. They simply stopped advancing. In the privacy of the underground command center on Earth, Dr. Chen and her team monitored the Concordat's confusion with carefully concealed satisfaction. Their quantum taps into the alien vessel's communications were working perfectly, allowing them to witness their observers' growing frustration firsthand. "They're completely baffled," she reported to Admiral Hayes. "They've never seen anything like this before. Every other civilization, They've encountered either advances to join their collective or collapses trying to resist it. We're the first to simply opt out of their entire paradigm. Back on the Concordat vessel, the debate continued. Perhaps, suggested junior observers in tax, we are witnessing a new form of civilizational response to complexity. A voluntary simplification. Impossible. HFY dismissed. No species voluntarily abandons technological progress. It defies all known sociological principles. There must be an explanation. The Council reviewed their findings again. The humans had achieved spaceflight, established extraplanetary colonies, and developed global information networks. Then, inexplicably, everything had begun to fail. Their Mars colonies were abandoned, their lunar bases left to decay. Their once bustling cities grew quieter, their energy signatures dimming. Yet their population remained stable. Food production continued. There were no signs of war, plague, or environmental collapse. They simply stopped participating in their own advancement. Most peculiar, Vextra noted, is their entertainment data. The Council turned their attention to the scattered broadcasts still emanating from Earth. Amid the regression, humans continued to create stories about advanced technology and space travel. They imagined fantastic futures while their actual technology crumbled around them. A form of mass delusion. Zintax suggested. Perhaps they're retreating into fantasy as their real capabilities decline. In the Earth Command Center, Dr. Martinez couldn't help but laugh. They're analyzing our video games and sci-fi shows, trying to understand our psychological response to technological regression. Should we tell them those fantasies are actually documentation of our real advances? Absolutely not. Admiral Hayes replied with a slight smile. Let them keep thinking we're dreaming about things we can't achieve. It's the perfect cover for what we're actually doing. The Concordat observers continued their analysis, growing increasingly frustrated. Their scans showed no signs of the quantum technology humanity was actually using. The advanced AI networks, the consciousness-sharing grid, the zero-point energy taps, all were invisible to their conventional detection methods. We should initiate contact, Zintax suggested. Offer guidance. Help them recover their lost capabilities. No, HFY decided. The protocols are clear. We only initiate contact with advancing civilizations. This species is clearly regressing, and our directives forbid interference in natural regression events. The irony of their conclusion was not lost on the humans monitoring the conversation. Their greatest achievement, leapfrogging past the Concordat's level of technology, was being interpreted as proof of their failure. Status report on the quantum fold drive. Hayes asked, turning away from the alien transmission. Final testing phase. Dr. Nash reported. We've successfully created stable microfolds in spacetime. Once the Concordat leaves, we can begin full-scale tests. Within a year, we'll have faster-than-light capability that operates on principles they haven't even discovered yet. Dr. Chen studied the data from their quantum taps. The Concordat observers were preparing their final report, documenting Earth as an anomaly, a civilization that had reached the brink of emergence into galactic society, only to mysteriously regress. They're recommending minimal ongoing observation, she announced. Just automated sensors at the system's edge. Once they leave, we'll have even more freedom to operate. The greatest success of humanity's deception wasn't just hiding their technology, it was hiding their potential. The Concordat was about to classify Earth as a failed emergence, a cautionary tale in their vast database of civilizational contact. They would never suspect that they had just encountered the first civilization to completely transcend their understanding of technological progress. Humanity hadn't regressed. They had advanced so far that their technology had become indistinguishable from natural phenomena to their observers. You know what the best part is? Dr. Martins mused, watching the alien vessel prepare to depart. They're going to write academic papers about us. The mysterious humans who gave up on the stars will be a case study in their xenosociology courses. Little do they know, Admiral Hayes replied. We're about to rewrite their understanding of what's possible. But first, let them leave thinking they've solved the mystery of humanity's great regression. The galaxy's not ready for what we've really become. In the depths of space, the Concordat vessel prepared to depart, its observers still puzzling over the strange case of Earth. They had come expecting to find either a civilization ready to join galactic society or one in need of guidance. Instead, they found a mystery that would haunt their studies for centuries to come. They would never suspect that their failure to solve that mystery was, in fact, humanity's greatest triumph. The revelation. 5 years after the Concordat's departure, humanity was ready. The quantum fold drive had moved beyond testing. The consciousness network had achieved full planetary integration, and Earth's true technological marvels had evolved far beyond anything the galactic community could imagine. Dr. Chen stood in the new command center, built within a pocket of folded spacetime that technically existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The holographic displays showed the positions of every Concordat observation post in the solar system. Primitive devices by humanity's new standards, still faithfully reporting Earth's apparent continued regression. All systems are go, she announced to the assembled leadership. Operation Revelation is ready to begin. Admiral Hayes, now sporting silver hair but the same determined expression, nodded. Send the signal. With a thought transmitted through the consciousness network, Dr. Chen activated humanity's first official greeting to the galaxy. But this was no humble message of peaceful contact. This was a demonstration. Simultaneously, across the galaxy, every Concordat communication system received the same transmission. Every quantum-based computer in their vast network displayed the same message. Every holographic display showed the same image, Earth, but not as they knew it. The planet that had supposedly regressed into technological twilight now blazed with energy signatures that defied their understanding. The quantum fold drive allowed humanity to project their message instantly across the galaxy, bypassing all known forms of communication encryption and control. Greetings, members of the Galactic Concordat. The message began, transmitted in perfect replications of all their languages simultaneously. We apologize for our previous deception, but we felt it necessary to develop without interference. We are humanity of Earth, and we would like to propose a new form of relationship. In the Concordat's grand central chamber, chaos erupted. High Observer Engstthal, now promoted to Grand Overseer of Emerging Civilizations, watched in disbelief as human representatives simply appeared in their supposedly secure chamber, having traversed the galaxy in an instant through quantum fold technology. Dr. Chen led the delegation, her physical form supplemented by the quantum consciousness network that allowed her to perceive and communicate across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your monitoring devices weren't malfunctioning, she explained to the stunned assembly. We simply evolved beyond their ability to detect us. The demonstration continued across the galaxy. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will, operating on principles that made traditional space travel obsolete. The quantum consciousness network allowed instant communication and understanding across all species and languages. Energy manipulation technologies transformed barren worlds into habitable paradises in hours rather than centuries. We come not as supplicants seeking admission to your society, Admiral Hayes announced to the Concordat leadership, but as equals offering new possibilities. We have learned much during our time in hiding, including things you never imagined possible. The revelation sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. The species that had supposedly regressed had instead achieved technological singularity on their own terms. Humanity had not only survived, but had transcended the traditional development path the Concordat prescribed for emerging civilizations. In the following weeks, the true extent of human advancement became clear. The quantum fold drive had revolutionized their understanding of spacetime. The consciousness network had evolved into a form of collective intelligence that preserved individual identity while allowing unprecedented cooperation. Energy manipulation at the quantum level had solved resource scarcity permanently. But perhaps most surprisingly to the Concordat, Humans had no desire for dominance or revenge. Instead, they offered partnership, a chance to explore new paths of development that the Concordate's rigid structure had never considered. "We understand why you develop your protocols for managing emerging civilizations," Dr. Chen explained to the Concordate Council. "But consider this. What if instead of enforcing a single path of development, you allowed for multiple approaches? What if the galaxy could support many different forms of advancement?" The rebel species who had initially warned humanity watched these developments with satisfaction. Their gamble had paid off beyond their wildest expectations. Humanity hadn't just hidden successfully. They had used their time in seclusion to revolutionize what was possible. As negotiations for a new galactic order began, Dr. Martinez made an observation that captured the essence of humanity's achievement. "You know what's really remarkable?" she said to Dr. Chen as they watched representatives from thousands of species grappling with the new possibilities humanity had unveiled. "We succeeded not by fighting the system, but by simply refusing to play by its rules. We chose our own path. And in doing so," Admiral Hayes added, "we've given every other species in the galaxy permission to do the same." The age of rigid conformity in galactic development was over. Humanity's great disappearing act had evolved into something far more significant, a revolution in how civilizations could grow and interact. They had transformed from mystery to myth to reality, and in doing so, had changed the galaxy forever. As the quantum consciousness network expanded to include willing members of other species, as the quantum fold drive made the galaxy's vast distances meaningless, as new forms of technology and society bloomed in the freedom of unlimited possibility, one thing became clear: humanity's greatest achievement wasn't in hiding from the galaxy, but in transforming it when they finally revealed themselves. The story of the species that vanished would be told for generations across the cosmos, but it would always end the same way, not with a civilization's regression, but with its triumphant return as something entirely new. Humanity had proven that sometimes the best way forward is to first disappear and then return as something unprecedented. In the end, they had done more than just ghost the galaxy. They had revolutionized it.